and welcome to the Infinity Bros podcast, the only podcast that's perfectly balanced, as all things should be. My name is Infinity Bro Isaac. I am one of your hosts tonight, and with me, I have a very special Infinity Bro. I was going to say guest, and you wouldn't have known any different, listeners, but it is one of our 6 rotating guests, or hosts, excuse me. It is Infinity Bro Zayne. How you doing, Zayne?
I'm doing well. Happy to be here. Happy to jump back on. It's been a hot minute, but you know, if I did things that make sense, I wouldn't be the Enigma. So
Zayne the Enigma, as labeled by loyal patron Scott Higa. Zayne, as we've referenced, has not been on for a while. We were talking about it on the Patreon exclusive episode, which you can check out in the link in the show notes. But I'm pretty sure it's been since the Last of Us review episodes earlier this year that Zayne has been on the podcast. So hot minute, but we're glad to have him back. We're glad to see that you're still a part of the Infinity Bros. Welcome back, Zayne.
You know, I got to make my appearances every now and again, just to remind people that I am here. I'm waiting in the shadows.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that we can count on Zayne for is to come and review Star Wars content with us. So
absolutely.
For those of you listeners, welcome to the Infinity Bros podcast. We're a cast of 6 rotating Infinity Bros, talk about pop culture, Marvel, Star Wars, you know, all the things that are going on in the news today. And we are going to be reviewing Ahsoka today, which just dropped 2 episodes premiere this week. And Zayne and I are pretty big Star Wars fans. I'd say we're top 2, probably Star Wars fans. I think Mark is definitely in the discussion there.
Yes.
Jarrett is also up there. Yes. All 4 of us are pretty big Star Wars fans. I know both Mark and Jarrett have also consumed Rebels and Clone Wars, which I believe we're going to be discussing quite a bit in this episode. But welcome to all you guys. If you're new to the Infinity Bros, we have a special rating system that I'm going to plug right here.
Here on the Infinity Bros podcast, everything is ranked from a 0 to 6 point scale. 0 meaning horrible, and 6 meaning absolutely excellent. If all of the Infinity Bros rank something a 6, it gets an infinity step.
And with that rating system, we're going to be rating different things, especially these 2 first episodes of Ahsoka. But we're also going to be fully spoiling these first 2 episodes of Ahsoka. So you haven't seen them, make sure you pause this episode and come back when you've watched them.
This is...
Prepare yourself.
An Infinity Bros.
Prepare yourself.
Spoiler. Warning.
So there's your official spoiler warning for the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka. Zayne, we're not going to waste too much time. We're going to deep dive right into this. So Ahsoka picks up kind of where we've left off in these random episodes of Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian that we've seen Ahsoka in. This is a much further in the timeline New Republic Ahsoka who is basically, tracking down Thrawn. So the synopsis reads, after the fall of the Galactic Empire, former Jedi Knight Ahsoka Tano investigates an emerging threat to a vulnerable galaxy. And we're going to be, again, reviewing episodes 1 and 2, which dropped on Disney Plus this week on, I believe it was August 20, is it 23rd? Yeah,
22nd.
22nd. Today, oh yeah, it's the 25th right now, it's Friday. 22nd. And it's going to be releasing weekly until it fulfills its 8-episode slate on Disney Plus. So, Zayne, before we get into the episode reviews here, a little bit of background in your Star Wars repertoire. You have consumed Clone Wars and Rebels. Where does that sit on your favorite things among Star Wars? Are they top 5? Did you enjoy them enough to say that you're a huge Clone Wars Rebels fans? Where are you sitting with that?
Yeah, I would say so. I think as far as storytelling goes in Star Wars universe, Clone Wars and Rebels are both top 5 in what they do. Now, granted, we haven't had a ton of what we have had for Star Wars, outside of the movies. But yeah, as far as just of the stories they tell and how much they add to the overall universe, it's bar none, really. you're going to be hard pressed to find anything else that really immerses you in what the story being told and kind of the adventures that's happening and what everything's unfolding, and then the character development as well.
Totally agree. I mean, I was actually on a podcast with my brother, Luke Edlin of Edlin Media. He kind of did a few podcast episodes. He's got some clips. He's produced basically like how to start a podcast, what to, feature on your podcast. And on that, one of the things that we did was a top 3 of like Star Wars projects, basically. And at that time, that was like right after I finished Rebels. And I will say I fall victim very frequently to recency bias. So you'll see me rank things very high on the podcast when I'm reviewing things. And then like later the year, when I've had a little bit more time to sit on it, it usually comes down a little bit. But on that podcast, I just got done watching Rebels, and I literally rank that as my number 1 Star Wars project, because the storytelling in Rebels is absolutely phenomenal. A lot of people you hear complain about the animation and the dialogue, which is definitely kind of geared and suited towards younger audience members, but the storyline is top tier Star Wars, and we talked a little bit about this on the patron exclusive portion as well, so make sure you click that link and check this out as well. But man, it's a phenomenal show, and the same goes for Clone Wars as well. It goes through a kind of a rough patch of finding an identity in the first couple seasons, but after it gets rolling, it's a tough show to top. It gets really, really good. And that final season following Ahsoka of the Clone Wars is maybe one of the best seasons of animation like ever. It's really, really solid. So some really good stuff. Really, we've been talking about these shows for a long time because of the lead up to Ahsoka, which many have kind of branded as the 5th season of Rebels. So let's dive into it a little bit here. I'm just going to list off some of the top casts here. Rosario Dawson comes back as Ahsoka Tano, and she obviously played Ahsoka in blank in here, the Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. I believe she had an appearance in there as well. Natasha Liu Bordizzo comes as Sabine Wren. Wes Chatham as Captain Enoch. Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Hera Syndulla. Ray Stevenson as Baylan Skoll, which we've got a hefty dose of in these first 2 episodes. Diana Lee Inosanto as Morgan Elsbeth. Here's one that I didn't know. I didn't know if this was like announced previously, but I saw David Tennant the credits, and I was like, who does he play? So I'm looking at this now. He plays Hu Yang,
he voices Hu Yang
droid, which I was like, that's perfect. That's amazing. So, and then later in the series, we haven't seen them these 2 episodes, but Iman Esfandi is casted as Ezra Bridger. We are going to see him later in the season. So we did get to see Clancy Brown as Governor Ryder Azadi, which is an actual character in Rebels. That was another one that I was like, okay, there's some connection. When I was watching, I was like, there's some connection here. Like this seems so similar. And then when I looked back and saw some clips of that episode, I was like, Clancy Brown literally played the voice of the dude in Rebels. Like, this is just, wow. They did an amazing job of like adapting the cast and, some of the elements of Rebels to live action in this. So just a phenomenal job of setup, not even talking about the show at all at this point. Everything they could have done to, brand this as live action Star Wars, they did. And it's really awesome so far. So Zane, let's get into it. Episode 1. What did you think of, and actually, you know what, if you want to, I'm going to leave this up to you. If you want to talk about 1 and 2 together, because they were released, premiered together. I watched them separately, so I kind of probably have them a little bit separate in my mind, but if you watch them together, I'll let you kind of review them together if you want. So what did you think of the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka?
I suppose it's probably easier to kind of take it one at a time. But as general, like my first like thoughts was just like, this is what I wanted to see. Now, granted, it's only 2 episodes in, so like we still have more. But I was just like, of how they capture like with Sabine, what you got with Ahsoka. This is what like this is how I want to see from everything that you watched from Rebels, and then moving through this animated. I thought they did a good job of being like, hey, because you always have that, like, how is a animated character going to show up in a real live action thing? And so far through 2 episodes, I feel like they've done a really good job. Now, granted, we've kind of had Ahsoka a little bit, but she wasn't like the main character, the main focus.
Right.
And like, I feel like with Ahsoka, Sabine, and Hera as well, they've done a really good job of bringing those characters to life in just 2 episodes. And not only that, but like the 2 episodes were super fun to watch because the sets and everything, it was visually beautiful. Like it was visually really fun to watch.
Right.
And so the first 2 episodes, it was just like it met my expectations of what it needed to do and what it needed to be. Now, granted, like I knew it was going to take some setup, and like I know we've kind of discussed this before of like what's it going to be like for someone who didn't watch Rebels or didn't watch Clone Wars or was coming into this new. But as someone who has that more on the background, like this is what I wanted to see for the first 2 episodes. It was pleasing for me to see this because it was like my expectations are being met.
Yeah, that's basically the same. I would say that I have. We're definitely going to dive into a few, of our favorite moments later in this episode. But like overall, very pleased with how everything turned out. And like you said, you kind of get worried about like the transition from animation to live action. How are people going to receive that? So many people have been talking about like the appearance of Hera Syndulla specifically. That's the one thing that sticks out to my mind because as animation, you can almost do anything you want with how the characters look. Live action, there's a lot of restrictions because like you either gotta go all out on the practical effects and make them look as good as possible in person, or you got to go full on CGI and just like completely like have them in the mocap suit and like they're barely recognizable as that actor or actress in the CGI suit. So like the fact that we're going practical to me is a step in the right direction and more true to just the Star Wars vibe in general. Because I mean, like, I don't know about you, Zane, but going back to the old 70s, 80s Star Wars movies, that's one of the pleasures of watching those movies is seeing all those practical effects, all the aliens with their rubbery looking costumes, like that's some of the charm of Star Wars. And the fact that even in Mandalorian too, we got several characters that had that feel of just like being real, like you didn't look at them and think like, wow, the CGI on that looks kind of wonky. They look real, even if, sure, maybe they don't have like the best facial movements as like somebody in person really does, but like they look real. And I think that's a really cool part of Star Wars to me. And I think getting back to that is it just makes it more appealing and charming to me. So I think that was really cool. I think they did overall a phenomenal job of adapting a cartoon animated show and turning it into live action. And I think overall, I think both of these episodes sit on the like 5.5 out of 6 rating for me. Where would you sit on these, Zane?
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Just because there was some of just the kind of setting stuff up and getting stuff going. Because just like anything that you see in there, like it's not obviously like a complex to the story. Because like it did kind of the whole Ahsoka and Sabine kind of that relationship, kind of establishing some of that. So it's just like you didn't have a ton of action. I thought it had the right amount of action and just enough, but the story did, for good reason, like the explanation on stuff. But I feel like they had to do more of that to kind of get caught, or the people who've never seen Rebels and stuff to get them caught up. Whereas like if it would have just hit the ground running and went in, I feel like more people would have been lost. So yeah. I think that's probably it's not really even a fair assessment or whatever, but I think that is just enough to just lower it just a slight amount by like
Yeah.
that 0.5 of just like, all right,
Right.
we got everything established. All right, let's start going now.
And really, if this is me talking, knowing Clone Wars and Rebels, so like, please correct me if I'm wrong if you've not watched those shows and feel much differently. But to me, I think they did a pretty good job of not putting too much exposition and putting enough exposition in these first two episodes of like giving you enough information about the characters without like overloading you with information that you didn't need to know or would not have known if you had not watched Rebels. So I think it was a pretty good balance that they did, about as well as you could do, because you've got people on both sides that were really worried about both. I know J Buck, one of our good friends, was a little bit overwhelmed. He felt like there were a lot of Easter eggs / references that he didn't really understand. But hey, send us an email, infinitybrospodcast@gmail.com, or contact us on some social media if you feel differently. If you feel like this did not do a good job and you're totally like, drowning in Star Wars references, let us know. But as somebody who was like, in on it, looking at it, I'm like, okay, I think this did a pretty good job at like letting people know kind of what's going on. But also like if we just cut out Clone Wars and Star Wars, or Clone Wars and Rebels, not Star Wars. Don't cut out Star Wars, guys. That's a bad idea. But if we just cut out those, pretend like they don't exist. If you're starting at 0, I feel like it gives us enough information about these characters to where you're kind of learning about them. And granted, I think I agree with you. It's a little bit of a slow start. I think there's a good amount of action to keep you engaged. But what I will say is, if you go back to Andor, people stopped watching by episode 3 or 4 because it's a slow burn. It's a slow developing show.
Right.
But man, that show gets so good.
So
good when it gets going. So I am very, very willing to hold on to this and be like, you know what? Let's just see where this goes. I don't have to have 100% action in these first 2 episodes right now. I think we can take a few of these slow building, character trait building episodes to see where this leads. So I'm okay. I'm okay with everything. I, as a Star Wars fan, phenomenal. Had a lot of amazing Rebels and Clone Wars references, which we'll talk about. But yeah, 5.5 out of 6, really good. I wouldn't say they're perfect, but they're about as dang good as you can really be, coming off of a lot of expectations. So I that's where you're sitting, it sounds like, too. So
yeah, I would agree with the 5.5. Yeah.
First of all, thing that I want to talk about is we get a villain, Baylan Skoll, who is played by the late Ray Stevenson, passed away tragically this year. And man, it is tragic because these first 2 episodes, I'm very interested in his character.
Yes.
And I cannot wait to see the rest of the season goes. So Baylan Skoll is like this Jedi turned mercenary after Order 66, which he survived. He kind of has apparently been taking, we don't know a whole lot about him quite yet, but he apparently has been taking just jobs to, get money and power, as he kind of explains in the second episode. And man, this guy, he plays everything so well. Like, he's still kind of got this code of honor that he probably learned from the Jedi, but he's obviously doing bad things for money. So like almost a little bit of like Count Dooku vibes. Dooku's got this kind of attitude of like, I'm better than you. I'm like more sophisticated, but he's also doing terrible things. So like, how much better than you really are? What did you think of Baylan Skoll?
I think it was fantastic. And like, it's funny that you said the Count Dooku vibes. The vibes that I was getting him. Now, granted, there's a part, and like we were just whole talking about this on the Patreon, but I was getting the strong, the Bode from Jedi Survivor. I was getting those vibes.
Yeah.
A guy who was a Jedi that kind of fell out and he's doing what he needs to do. And it's, he'll work for whoever he can. Now, granted, his motivations were different, but like if his motivation is power, it's just like it might not necessarily, be evil that he's a Sith, but like he's still working on his own. Because it like he even says that toward the end of episode 2, how Morgan talks about killing the Jedi, and he's even like, well, shame about killing because there's so few of them left.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like you said, like he still has somewhat of a code or some like a bit of that honor. So I think that of the little bit we saw, that makes him a very intriguing villain. I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes me want to know more about him.
All right, so we've kind of talked about Baylan Skoll a little bit, but I do want to mention also his sidekick or apprentice, Shin Hati, played by Ivana Sakno. Honestly, she was a pretty dang good apprentice. I really have no complaints about her either. She was like intimidating enough, but seemed a little inexperienced, kind of as you would expect. I don't even really want to call them dark side Force users, but like as a Sith apprentice or whatever, they're not Sith necessarily, but like an apprentice, but a dark apprentice would kind of act like she kind of played it perfectly. And she didn't really have a huge role in it, but that might expand in the future here. So made a pretty good combo, Baylan and Shin. What do you think?
Yeah, they definitely added that intrigue. I think Baylan definitely stole more of the show, but like you could also see like when she went to the comm tower and stuff that Shin's also very capable on her own. So I think they did the work to set those two up as an interesting, master and apprentice. And I think finding out more about their story as well throughout the remaining episodes is also going to be fun to see.
Yeah,
because they're intriguing characters.
And they are employed by Morgan Elsbeth, played by Diana Lee Inosanto. We know Morgan Elsbeth from The Mandalorian. Ahsoka faced off against her and defeated her with a Beskar spear, which was a pretty sweet, way to get introduced to her. But we find out that she is employing these guys to kind of help her hunt down this star map. And she reveals in the second episode that she is a descendant of the Night Sisters, which we've seen in several different Star Wars media at this point, but most prominently the Clone Wars and the Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor series. That was a very interesting reveal. What did you think of that, Zane?
Yeah, I thought that was very cool because it's just another tie to what we've had in previous stuff. Like it's like they constantly are finding ways of, hey, here's stuff that was in the Clone Wars or Rebels, stuff that people might not have seen, but we're bringing to the main screen now. And so now to have like this tie of the Night Sisters who played such a huge part in Clone Wars and are actually an interesting facet to everything because they don't adhere to Sith or Jedi. Like they're their very own thing,
kind of their own entity.
Is an interesting addition.
For those of you guys not super familiar with the lore of Night Sisters, they come from the planet Dathomir, actually kind of the same race as Darth Maul and Savage Opress from the Clone Wars. Just a very interesting, it's almost like they have their own force, like they have some kind of magic abilities that is kind of related to the Force, but it's really its own thing. And we learn a little bit more about it through Marin in the Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor games. And man, it's just cool that they're bringing this back. And she does mention too that she's a descendant. She doesn't seem to have like the same markings as the Night Sisters in Clone Wars or Marin in the games. So, she might be a bit further on down the line. Like she has had a descendant of, that was a Night Sister or something at some point. So a little interesting, but she does seem to still have some kind of powers.
Right. She's had those mystic powers that they have.
Yeah. She was able to, use the star map with her kind of like mystic powers or whatever. So a little bit intrigue because in Mandalorian we kind of thought she was just a politician that was well trained in martial arts, apparently,
Right.
because she could fight Ahsoka pretty well with that Beskar
Right.
spear. But she didn't really, she never mentioned anything like that for sure. So that was very interesting reveal. Another just fascinating aspect of the show that is continuing to get more and more interesting. So I think that was a really cool reveal. So that kind of so far what we've got. And they're trying to open the star map to get to Thrawn. Thrawn, as we know from Rebels, was banished to another dimension, basically, with Ezra Bridger from Rebels. Mentioned again, he's played by Eamon Esfandi, or will be later in this series. He doesn't show up in these 2 episodes, but he will. He'll
his
come.
hologram
Just
is
be
there.
patient. Yeah, his hologram did show up. His voice did show up. They're searching for Thrawn, and we get Ahsoka, who's trying to track them down. We get Sabine, who she ends up trying to go recruit, and Hera Syndulla and Chopper. Obviously, you mentioned Chopper. Great interaction between Hera and Chopper on the ship when they're arguing about the tracker. And it's just, we mentioned this kind of, previously, that it's 100% Rebels.
Yeah.
Somehow they're able to capture the vibe of the animated Rebels and bring them into live action in that interaction. That was so cool. And somebody mentioned online too, it's so funny how you can almost tell what Chopper is saying by his buzzes and stuff like that. Totally different from any other droid. R2-D2, any other astromech that we've seen in Star Wars franchises, they just use beeps and whizzes and buzzes and stuff like that to communicate. Chopper almost sounds like he's talking. So he's going to be a really fun one to watch on screen at any time. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Hera. We kind of already talked about her appearance. Mary Elizabeth Winstead has done a phenomenal job so far.
Fantastic job.
I think she's going to be a great part of the show. What I really want to focus on is Ahsoka and Sabine. I think that's kind of the focus of these 2 episodes. Ahsoka, obviously played by Rosario Dawson, we've gotten in Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. I think everybody has been very pleased and excited about her casting. And so far, she has done a phenomenal job playing a more mature Ahsoka that you do see in Rebels. Like, this is basically Rebels Ahsoka. Even a little older than Rebels, obviously. This is a little bit further down the timeline. But in Rebels, she is a mature, very well put together individual who is capable of handling herself. I mean, she goes up against Vader, probably the most powerful being in the universe at that time, maybe save the Emperor, but very, very capable of handling herself. And that continues into this series, I think. What did you think of Ahsoka? What do you think of Rosario Dawson reprising her role?
I think she crushes it. Like, I think that's one of those castings that they completely nailed. Like, I think she portrays the character very well. It even just kind of in some of her expressions and body language, which I think she does a good job of bringing that character, what we had in the animated series, to real life. And I think she captures it's kind of that older, and you got the older version of Ahsoka in Rebels, but I think she plays that role very well.
I went back and I was watching just the first season of Clone Wars this week while I was just like folding laundry, just to have something on the TV. And it's so interesting to go back to that first season and just her mannerisms, as a Padawan, and she's like so inexperienced and kind of just goes off and does her own thing and gets herself in trouble. And then you see her in this show and she's so experienced and she kind of can see what's going to happen, just by way of experience, not even like seeing, what's going ahead in the Force. It's just like, she kind of is like, yeah, I kind of been around the block a little bit and I know what's going to happen here. So it's so cool to go back and see like how far she's come as a character.
Right.
Like, you don't really see that much in media, I feel like, because Star Wars and Marvel, I feel like there's some of the, and you throw Star Trek. I don't think any of us on this show are Trekkies, but like there's so much Star Trek, so much Star Wars, so much Marvel, that you have the capability to tell stories across a long period of time. And Ahsoka is one of those characters that we've seen a lot of Ahsoka. And Granted, live action, we have not seen a lot, but in Clone Wars, I mean, this Clone Wars became, by season 7, Ahsoka's show. Like, it was season 7 specifically, that was Ahsoka's season.
Yeah.
And to see how she became a inexperienced, kind of brash, doing her own thing Padawan, to now being the most experienced, probably one of the most powerful Jedi that still exist in the universe at this point, is so cool to see, how far she's come.
Yeah, and I think that's also the fun of Clone Wars, of watching her character development. Because, yeah, you definitely see her as this young Padawan, and just the relationship she had with Anakin. It makes it fun. Through all this media, you watched her grow as a character throughout the whole thing. And I think that's what definitely adds to it. And it also has just been more of a, like, yeah, you're kind of on that journey together, type of thing of seeing the development. We sing the praises of Clone Wars all the time, but like you saw the same thing with like Darth Maul. Like, you saw these characters' development through all this stuff. Now, granted, Darth Maul's ended in Rebels, but like Ahsoka's continues on, and so you just see all the stuff she's been through that impact her decision making now, or the lessons she's learned. Because so often you see that of, oh, it's an off-screen lesson, or things like that. With Ahsoka, like, you've seen so much of this stuff, and so like it's become more of a living thing as it's gone along.
Really cool to see on screen. So then we you mentioned some of that off-screen development. We get Sabine in episode 1, and we kind of learn through some of the context that Ahsoka has been training Sabine as her Padawan, and apparently did not go well. We still don't know a lot of the details of what happened. That'll be coming in the next few episodes, I'm sure. But they had some kind of falling out. Ahsoka basically left. And this is Sabine's, side of the story that we've been hearing. So we'll find out soon enough what exactly happened. But Ahsoka basically left from training Sabine, left her on the planet that Ezra is from.
Oh, Lothal.
Lothal, yeah, there you go. And so she's been kind of hanging out on Lothal, just like chilling and spending a lot of time thinking about what's going on. The interesting thing, I mean, like, Sabine as a character is very, very interesting. I mean, you start out Rebels, and you kind of, maybe you have a different assessment, honestly. I'll ask you in just a second here. But to me, she seemed like a very secondary character. She was kind of just like an add-on almost in the first couple seasons. And then we get into like the Mandalorian arc in Rebels, and like Sabine is like, she's legit. Like, she is a main character. She is almost expected to be a Mandalorian leader in kind of that arc, and she inherits the darksaber, and she uses that, and she goes through this, a lot of responsibility that she didn't want, kind of gets thrust into that leader role. And that's where they end the show, is Ahsoka takes Sabine to presumably go search for Ezra, which obviously we find out they didn't find Ezra in this. But it's just fascinating to me how she starts at this like very minor, to me anyways, almost non-relevant character, to being a pretty focal point of it by the end of Rebels. So I don't know, what are your thoughts on Sabine through Rebels?
Well, I think that's kind of a little bit of the point. Like, I think at the beginning of Rebels, they kind of definitely set it up of just like, hey, we're following Ezra, but they also kind of, in my opinion, kind of kept it separate of everyone's stories, that like you kind of learned about these people as Ezra kind of did as well. And because like you saw that development for all of them. I mean, you knew Hera was the pilot, but like seeing who her dad was, seeing everything, the growth she went through to be eventually become the general. Same with like Sabine, just kind of how you find out about like who her mom was, who her clan is, and then her story, and then you get kind of the backstory on Jeb. It kind of adds more to that story. Like, it kind of kept you in the dark of feeling like, I don't know who any of these characters are. And then as it kept going, it kind of gave life to those characters and really spread out and develop those characters well. I feel like it was kind of intentional on that, to kind of be like, I don't know how to feel about these certain characters, but then kind of through the whole series of Rebels, it went kind of into those backstories, and it, really fleshed them out.
It really suited Sabine leading into this show, because I mean, this is an Ahsoka show. It's obviously labeled Ahsoka. Most of it's going to be focused on her, but man, it is taking a pretty big chunk and focusing on Sabine in these first couple episodes. So I think one of the coolest things about Sabine in these live action episodes so far is her intro when she is on the speeder bike and you just hear this like rock music. I was like, yeah, this is Sabine. Like this is who she is. Like that's so cool how they introed her like that.
Just
it was just perfect.
All the little things that they kept from just her obsession with drawing. You see all the doodles everywhere still.
Yep.
The hair, everything's not just the standard colors of everything. Like she has her own colors to everything, from her speeder to her armor. Like all that still carried over. And so like you very much see more of, her personality still coming through on that. That was very cool to see. You're like, that's Sabine. Like that's what you got in Rebels. And that just added to that character depth in this.
And it kind of carried over from Rebels as well, was her independent, kind of like brash personality, especially when she's like, Ahsoka comes to find her about the star map. She takes it. Ahsoka specifically is like, no, don't leave this ship. And she turns around, and what do you know? Sabine's gone.
Right.
It was just perfect. I was like, man, that's just Sabine. Like this is incredible. They're doing a great job of nailing the character of Sabine so far in these first couple episodes. And Natasha Liu Bordizzo, don't know her at all, but she's doing a fantastic job as portraying Sabine through these first two episodes. And at the end of those second episode, we got she cut her hair off, kind of got back to the Rebels, short hair, and she dons her Mandalorian armor, which was a really cool moment. It was just something that she had stored away, something that she wanted to forget about, and now she finally is like, you know what, I need to basically face my past, face my fears, and move on, and I need this stuff. So one thing that I thought was so cool was they basically recreated the final scene from Rebels in this episode 2, where they're in the kind of throne room thing where she painted the mural of the Ghost Crew on the wall, and she's like looking at that, kind of reminiscing, and she hears Ahsoka's ship. She turns around, and Ahsoka's standing at the opening of the room, and it was just like, wow, that was such a cool shot, where they basically did a shot for shot recreation of that scene from Rebels. Obviously Ahsoka's not wearing the white gown with the staff or anything like that, but it was really cool how they recreated that. A really cool nod to the animated show.
Well, not only that, but even the mural that they actually used, was the one from Rebels.
Right, it's the one from Rebels. It's literal animation from Rebels.
Yeah.
That was really cool. They did a fantastic job with that. There wasn't a whole lot that I don't like about these episodes. I'm trying to think of something that I really didn't like, but there's not a whole lot. Is there anything that you picked out that you were like, I don't know about that?
I mean, the only thing that kind of bothered me was I think they cut Sabine's hair too short. I think it needed to be a little longer. I really liked but when she had her long hair, you see all the different colors through it.
True. Yeah.
And even in Rebels, when she has her short hair, you can see the flares of the different colors.
Yeah.
Whereas this, she cut her hair short, and it's just all purple now.
Yeah. Right.
Whereas in Rebels, it would purple, but then it had the white stripe. You saw more of the color. No, Ezra's the one with the all purple hair, not Sabine.
Yeah, all natural purple hair apparently.
Yeah.
So does this mean you're going to go color your hair purple with some orange streaks in it, or?
Yeah, totally. That's going to be my
make
new
up
look.
for that. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man.
But no, there wasn't a whole lot that I didn't enjoy. There was so many little things, or even the little Easter, every scene that had a Loth cat in it, I was like,
oh man, the Loth cat.
The Loth cat.
Okay, so this is I'm gonna go back to what I was saying earlier. the blend of like practical animation with CGI that they chose is perfect for that Lothcat, because there's something off about the Lothcat, right? Like you look at it and you're like, this is like a pug. It's so ugly that it's cute.
Right.
Like I can't my brain can't process this. Have you ever watched Mitchell's versus the Machines? It's the one on Netflix. It's like the pug in that. Like the robots see him and they can't process what the heck he is. That's what I thought when I saw the Lothcat. I was like, it's so ugly. It's cute.
Right.
How does this work? It's amazing. But they did such a good job. And you could see that it's like, I have not done any research on this, so correct me if I'm wrong, but this looks like it is a animatronic,
it does,
like practical effect.
That's what it looks like.
It could be completely CGI. I don't know, but it looks like it's an animatronic, and that's Star Wars to me. I was like,
oh yeah,
give it to me. I love these Lothcats. I love these things.
Absolutely,
so fantastic.
It's just there's so many those little things that you're just like you wouldn't think you'd like, but like you said, like I don't really have much to pick on. Of something that's super glaring that I didn't like, because like
the only thing I didn't like is that we didn't see Marok, the Inquisitor dude, fly away with his Hello lightsaber. Like that was the only thing I really wanted, but we didn't get it. So
maybe next episode.
Maybe next episode. This could still happen later. Okay, that was the last thing that I wanted to end on. So at the end of the second episode, we get a confrontation between Ahsoka and Marok, who Balin mentions to Shin earlier. They're going to meet up with Marok on Corellia. But, I mean, we don't know who this is. Like, he's dressed up in this armor. He's got an Inquisitor lightsaber. This could be anybody. Like, I've heard people speculate that this could be Ezra Bridger. And I'm like, well, that's a wild theory. But, I mean, at this point, we have no reason to even discredit that, because we have no idea who this person is.
Right.
Do you have any theories on this person? Who is this? Who is Marok? Who do you think that is?
For starters, number one, I'd be greatly disappointed if it was Ezra. But
that would be weird. Yeah.
I don't think it could possibly be Ezra, because like at the end of Rebels, Ezra and Thrawn got yeeted to the same place.
Right. You would think that if Ezra found his way back, that Thrawn would have found his way back.
Found his way back too. Right. So a couple of the theories, because I was just looking at some recently. And so some people were saying in Heir to the Empire, so granted this is Legends, so it's not current, but like Thrawn, I think it was Thrawn, he makes a clone of Luke Skywalker. So it's Luke with 2 U's in his name. And so it's basically a clone, which is amazing. An evil Luke Skywalker. So some people are like, well, what if they go that route? The other one I've heard is, which would make more sense, because if you look at Mark's helmet, it doesn't look like there's any type of sight or anything. So some people are saying, what if the reveal would be it's a clone of Kanan Jarrus?
Oh, okay. I really like that, actually.
Right. And so
that would be sweet.
Right. And because like some people have been saying, apparently, now granted, like we've been looking ahead on IMDb, apparently Freddie Prinze Jr. is supposed to be in this, and he voiced Kanan Jarrus.
Yeah.
So I think that's where some people are trying to come up with that theory, that what if it's a Kanan Jarrus clone?
That would be phenomenal.
Which would also really tie in to get Ezra back.
Or Kanan Jarrus himself.
Right.
Somehow.
Or if he's right, because like we saw him as a Force ghost and everything. Like he definitely didn't survive that explosion. But like that was one of the things I saw online that I'm like, that would be
very interesting. So for those of you guys who have not seen Rebels, Kanan Jarrus, very prominent figure throughout the whole series. He becomes blind and then gets killed. But the blind thing, with the visor helmet, like Zane was saying, doesn't seem to be any visual capability. But it's Star Wars,
Right, it's Star Wars, but he becomes blind, but he sees stuff through the Force.
Right.
Which would then make sense with Mark, because like, how else would you see outside that helmet? You got to be seeing with the Force.
Yeah.
So I guess, there is some possible merit to that, but I suppose that's the one I'm like, I like the most, that could be some sort of clone of Kanan Jarrus.
Well, anyways, Marok is very capable. I would not say he or she bests Ahsoka in combat, but he is at they. I don't know if this is a male or female.
Right.
They are about equal to Ahsoka in combat at that time, and ends up escaping Ahsoka more so. Like Ahsoka's got Merrick on the run basically,
Right.
and they escape Ahsoka. And I mean, we aren't really given any other clues as to who Merrick could be or why they're in with Balin, or how that whole connection works. I thought that was interesting because Merrick definitely seems to be an Inquisitor, or was an
Right.
Inquisitor. Balin is his own dude.
Right.
Like, he's a mercenary. So I'm really interested to see how that relationship started or is maintained.
Right.
Because I feel like if the Empire, or whatever they're calling the Underground Empire at this point, if they knew Balin existed or were really big on him, wouldn't they have either tried to recruit him or kill him if he didn't want to join up with them? Like, I feel like they would have known about him at this point and tried to get him either on their side or got rid of him. Right. So I'm really interested to see where this connection comes in. In that scenario, Merrick seems to be a former Inquisitor to me. Maybe he's current Inquisitor. I don't know. Who knows at this point? Very interesting. I think there's going to be some really cool stuff coming down the line with Ahsoka. First 2 episodes were phenomenal. I'm very excited about them. But I do want to hear from you guys. If you guys have not watched Clone Wars or Rebels, make sure you let us know on social media or infinitybrospodcast@gmail.com. What did you think of the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka? Do you think there's too many references? Did everything go over your head? Was it just right? Let me know what you think of this show. Really interested to see where this leads. And so far, it's shaping up to be a pretty good show. I'm glad they gave them a couple extra episodes. We got 8 episodes this season to go through what a lot of people with the Disney Plus shows are saying the 6-episode format just didn't cut it. Like, they're trying to cram too much into these 6-episode formats. So they stretched it out a little bit, see if we can kind of get a full storyline through those 8 episodes. What are you excited for moving forward, Zane?
Yeah, just seeing how this continues to grow. I get Ezra back. I want to see Jeb back. Like, let's start, get the whole crew back. And yeah, what does all this have in store? Because it's just like you're bringing in huge characters that could potentially, set stuff up as the future of Star Wars that we're moving forward on now. I'm excited to see all that in live action and to see where this is going to go and lead.
I'm with you. One thing I did want to mention, though, that I forgot to mention before. So Sabine and Shin get into a lightsaber fight when Shin is taking the star map from Sabine. She gets stabbed in the stomach, which adds to the list of Star Wars characters that get stabbed in the stomach and still survive. Force Ghost Qui Gon Jinn is just sitting on the sideline like, come on, guys. Like, how did I not survive getting stabbed in the stomach by Darth Maul?
Qui Gon got stabbed in the heart, not the stomach.
His is a little bit more lethal, but when this is what I thought when she got stabbed. It definitely seemed like it was upper abdomen, like going into chest when she got stabbed. And then when later they show the scar, it's definitely like lower right side of the abdomen. And I was like, oh, wow. They almost like seemed like they retconned that a little bit. Just the stab placement.
I didn't get that, though. Like, to me, watching it, I don't know. Maybe you just blinked at that scene or something.
Maybe.
Because when I was watching it legit looked like it was low. Because I was like, because it stabbed, you saw the lightsaber go through.
I'll watch it again.
Because my first reaction to that was like, oh man, she's gonna have to get to a bacta tank right away.
Yeah, right.
Because it wasn't like that.
See, that's the other thing I thought too. This is me and my registered nurse brain taking over in that moment. But in real life, you get stabbed in the stomach. That's like a massive deal because stomach bleeding is like you die. You die if you get stabbed in the stomach. Generally, lightsabers seal wounds, cauterize it, so you wouldn't really have a lot of bleeding. You might still get some organs messed up in there,
right?
but you're not suffering internal bleeding necessarily. So an abdominal wound with a lightsaber, it's probably survivable. Unless you're like slashing their spine, that's a different issue.
Unless your name's Darth Maul.
Unless you're named Darth Maul. Yeah, exactly. That's totally fine.
That is fine. That was just his lower body.
It's the
upper
force.
body was
the
fine.
Force,
Yeah.
The force kept them together. So
his force and his hatred of Obi-Wan.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Zane, for all the wonderful insight in the first two episodes.
Actually, another thing, since we're just talking about that scene,
Sure.
I don't know if it was an Easter egg or just how it was, but like one thing I noticed from that fight scene. Now, granted, she's using Ezra's lightsaber, but did you notice they had her holding it? How you hold the darksaber?
Really? Well, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, I didn't notice it, right? But
I was just like, well, because that's been my thing of this whole season. Like, get Sabine the darksaber. Like, right. I would love to see if Ahsoka ends with Sabine. I know there's enough of the enough of like, oh, the Mandalorian stuff, but like, it just seems the right thing to do, because even what we had from the Mandalorian, because obviously Mando, didn't care about the darksaber and everything with Bo-Katan, but just like, it just would be so cool to see Sabine use it.
It would be sweet.
I was just like,
It would be interesting to see how they handle that, because, I mean, timeline-wise, this probably is about the same time as the last half of the Mando finale. And the last half of the Mando finale is probably within a couple days. So, like, you could easily say this is after the Mando finale. But with what happened to the Darksaber in Mando, who knows? I mean, the Darksaber played such a big part in that season that I would venture to say we're going to see it again. I don't think that...
But hey, of everyone that we know that's super technical and could rebuild the Darksaber hilt, we know someone who could do that.
Yes, we do. Sabine Wren.
That's right.
Yeah, definitely a possibility that Sabine could hold the Darksaber again.
I'd love to see it.
I'd say that would be sweet. That would be really cool.
That'd be very cool.
That'd be very cool callback to Rebels. And not that we're not going to see a lot of those in this show.
Right.
But again, I would concur with the analysis that this is basically season 5 of Rebels. We pretty much pick up, I mean, years in the future for sure, but like honestly, we pretty much pick up right from where we left off with Rebels.
Didn't even Filoni say that this is basically going to be season 5 of Rebels?
I don't know. If he did, then
I could have swore that was a quote from someone.
That makes total sense if that's true. So anyways, tell us what you thought of episodes 1 and 2 of Ahsoka. Zane, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. It's been fun.
Of course. It's always a good time when you get Zane and Isaac mess around.
Yeah, the night bros of the Infinity Bros. You can throw Jared in there too. He's got insomnia from drinking coffee and energy drinks after like 10 p.m. So once in a while, we might get Jared to join us. But thank you, Infinity Bros Universe. Wherever you're listening, however you're listening, thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Make sure to check out the Infinity Bros on theinfinitybros.com or any social media platform. We will be happy to hear from you about Ahsoka episodes 1 and 2. We love you 3000. Have an amazing night, day, week.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Infinity Bros podcast. You can find the Infinity Bros on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube at The Infinity Bros. You can also check out our website at theinfinitybros.com for links, reviews, and sweet merch. Feel free to send us listener feedback via social media or email at infinitybrospodcast@gmail.com.